Everyone, I'm Dean Obidala. Welcome to today's The Dean's Report. You are my guest. And I started this last month. I did it one time right before the holidays, and people seem to enjoy it. I do it on my radio show just about literally every single night. There, people can call me and I can talk to them. Others can hear it. Here, because now the new Substack Live is a desktop version, in case you've used it, you know that, and you see that I can see the chat clearly here. So we figure we're going to give it a shot here. So today's topic in You Are My Guest. And again, literally, you are my guest. I'm going to read your comments to each other because I truly believe we learn from each other, from the comments, the thoughts, the questions, the concerns. But today's topic is, what do you want to see Democrats in Congress say and do in response to Trump's attack on Venezuela and kidnapping of their leader? And, Congress is getting back in session. Now they're coming in. In fact, tomorrow I have two members of Congress on my radio show, and we've seen some in the news. But I want to tell you point blank what I want to see. And look, I'm not a politician. I'm a former lawyer. I have a sense of right and wrong, and my view is very clear. I want Democrats in one voice to call for the impeachment of Donald Trump. And secondly, I don't think impeachment's enough. I would like to see them actually call for the International Criminal Court to prosecute and investigate Donald Trump and others in his regime. And I can get in a second the legal part of how that actually can be done, even though the U.S. is not a signatory to the ICC. There's a way of doing it. But my point is this. If the world, and Democrats at least, do not stand up to Donald Trump here, why would he not do more? What was the argument when Putin invaded Ukraine? Everybody invoked Hitler. 1938 Hitler, 1939 Hitler, all valid. 1938, Hitler takes Austria. The world says, well, okay, no big deal. 1938, later in the year, he threatens to invade Czechoslovakia. That's when we have the big Munich meeting, the meeting in Munich, where, Britain and France agree to give Hitler a big part of Czechoslovakia, the German-speaking thing, peace in our time, all of that. What happens? September 1st, 1939, he invades Poland. So that was really informative for us. It truly is. The idea if somebody is a wannabe dictator, a fascist, then you have to stand up to them, because if you don't, they will continue down that same path. And does anybody watching doubt that Donald Trump is as bad of a person as Vladimir Putin? I'm not going to say Hitler. Hitler's a special case. In the modern era, look at Putin wants to invade Ukraine. He does. Does anyone doubt Donald Trump is cut from that same cloth? That he is just as dangerous to the world order as Vladimir Putin? And that if the world doesn't stand up to him, and I wrote this yesterday, if the world does not stand up to Donald Trump, he will continue to wage military attacks on other countries, kidnap their leaders, and steal their resources. History tells us appeasement of people like Trump, of Putin, will just empower them and embolden them more. And that might sound jarring, the idea the world should stand up to Donald Trump, and Democrats certainly should. It's only because it's the U.S. president I'm talking about that some people might hesitate. If it was any other leader in the world doing what Trump just did, we would all uniformly demand that the world unite to stop it. And I know that's not speculative, because what happened when Putin went into Ukraine? President Biden led our European partners from NATO to do that very thing. The same exact argument. So here's the thing about Maduro, by the way. And I hate when Democrats lead with Maduro's a bad guy. He's a bad guy, but that's not part of the conversation. He could be the worst guy ever. It's not the ends justify the mean in a democratic republic where you have a constitution. The means are important. Maduro's horrible. Human Rights Watch, other organizations denounce him. What you do is you act within the parameters of the law if you're a lawful nation. What does that mean in this scenario? One is you go to Congress, you get authorization. The Iraq War was horrible, but it wasn't illegal from the U.S. point of view because Congress authorized it. It was terrible. They should never have done it, but they did it. And under Bush, they went to the UN. Now, I went back and looked. There was never a UN Security Council resolution authorizing war, but there were numerous ones where the evidence was presented and they voted for inspections of Iraq. So that makes it much more legal. Trump just whimsically goes, we're going to attack Venezuela. They were not a threat to us. But to me, and I was yelling about that like a week and a half ago, I did one of these, You Were My Guest, and people tuned in. And the question is, why weren't people outraged that Donald Trump is killing people in the international waters, murdering them? It's illegal. And that was my point, that if people don't stand up to him, he'll do further. And here's where we are. The world didn't stand up to him when he was just erasing people in international waters, 1,500 feet miles from the U.S. There is no legal justification to kill people in international waters unless they pose an imminent threat to your country or your citizens. Imminent. That's international law. That's not me. That's it. The UN said it. Others said it. And no one stood up to him. So here's Donald Trump going in there. And the thing is, this has nothing to do with the people of Venezuela. The Maduro regime is still running Venezuela, except for Maduro. His vice president is now running it. The same security system is running apparatus, although Trump says he's running it. And he only did this for the oil. And there's some people sort of tongue-in-cheek giving him credit. Well, at least he's saying he did it for the oil. It makes it even worse on the world stage. There's not even plausible deniability. Donald Trump in the press event Saturday, did you watch him? He could barely stay awake. I have no idea who's running this government, but it's not him. He said the word oil more than 20 times. I'm not kidding, more than 20 times in that press event, he said the word oil. How many times did he say democracy or freedom for the people of Venezuela? How many? Can you guess? Zero. Because he doesn't give a shit about the people of Venezuela. Of course, they're brown people. Donald Trump is trying to get brown people out of our country. Donald Trump ended temporary protected status for Venezuelans in our country, which would in effect force them to go back to live under the Maduro regime. Let's not forget, that's what he did just a few months ago. He does not care about brown people, doesn't care about Venezuelans. He cares about white people, white power, and he cares about the oil companies that bankrolled his campaign. And we covered it in my articles and on appearances. During the campaign, he had the fossil fuel oil tycoons, the oligarchs, and he met with them and he told them point blank, give me $1 billion, raise that for my campaign, and I will give you a deal where you make even more money. This is payback. He's already given them payback, pulling back on regulations. Just be clear. This is the cherry on the corrupt sundae. So what does he do? He gives them access to Venezuela, which I think by now everyone knows, the largest untapped oil supply in the world. That's not an exaggeration. In the world. Saudi Arabia is second. Venezuela, the biggest untapped. There are tons of oil there to make the donors who gave money to his campaign even richer, because the oligarchs can't make enough money. That's how it works. So you've got that, and there's no doubt. I mean, Trump's not playing. There's no care about the Venezuelan people. There's no plan. He says, I'm running the country. Then Marco Rubio goes on, Meet the Press says, well, someone's running it. They said, are you running it? He says, no, I'm not running it. They have no plan. There's no plan. There's no thought behind this. This is the President of the United States, in our name, attacking another country that was not a threat to us without congressional authorization, without UN authorization, and kidnap the leader. And there are people on the right cheering for this because they do not believe in our Constitution. Understand that. They really don't. They're the same people who supported Donald Trump, who attempted the January 6th terrorist attack, who gave us the January 6th terrorist attack and attempted a coup. So what we have here is Donald Trump. And by the way, another point, and I put in my article, and a point others have been raising, which is very valid, Donald Trump's talk about drugs. He just pardoned the former head of Honduras, a man named Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of being a narco-terrorist, who his business partner was, wait for it, El Chapo. That's who Donald Trump pardoned. He pardoned El Chapo's business partner, who dumped 400 tons of cocaine on our nation. And I wrote about the time he pardoned it. I went back and looked at the overdose from cocaine in the years when he began dumping cocaine, and it spiked in our country. This was a massive amount of cocaine. And to be very clear, the guy Trump pardoned, the former head of Honduras, killed more Americans than bin Laden did on 9/11. And that's based on the data. That's the reality of the situation. So, but I'm going to start reading the comments because I really want people to say what you want to see Democrats do now, how you want to see them respond, and how would you like the world to respond as well? Do you want them perhaps to boycott the World Cup? The games played in the U.S., because don't forget, North America got the World Cup, not just the U.S. There are games in Canada and Mexico. Do you want nations around the world to say, we're only going to play in Canada and Mexico, whatever it might be? But put aside politics for a second. The world is watching. We're the same nation that years ago, 20 years ago, attacked Iraq based on a lie. destabilize that country, destabilize Afghanistan. And now we have Donald Trump come in, a man who ran on no wars within 10, 11 months, has attacked people in the ocean, killing them, more than 100, murder, no legal basis. They see it. They know it. If you read publications in Europe, BBC, Guardian, others, there's no dispute. Every expert they speak to said those were illegal murders. Now Trump attacks another country. At least 80 people have been killed, including civilians. The New York Times did a great report today. It'll go higher than that. So it was a military action, not a law enforcement action, using our military to kill people and kidnap their leader for no reason. Nobody knows why. There was no clamoring that this guy was a threat to us. He was not harboring terrorists. This is not Afghanistan after 9/11. It literally was whimsical. Donald Trump goes, I want to do this. And he does it because no one's going to stop him. And everyone who works for him knows they'll get pardoned. And it brings me to the last point before we open up, and I'll read the comments. We'll do this for like 15 minutes. I'll read people's comments. The reason the International Criminal Court at The Hague actually could prosecute Trump and others is that while the U.S. is not a signatory, the way the ICC is set up is that any nation that is a signatory, if somebody commits crimes within the jurisdiction of the ICC on their soil, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, it's called, on their soil, they can be prosecuted regardless of where they're from. So to put in much simpler terms, Venezuela is a signatory to the ICC, meaning if Donald Trump has committed any of the crimes that the ICC has jurisdiction, and there's not a bunch of crimes, there's a handful, and they have jurisdiction, they could prosecute Donald Trump at the International Criminal Court. Same thing for Marco Rubio. Same thing for Pete Hegseth. Like Nuremberg trial. I just saw that movie 2 nights ago. It's on cable, Nuremberg. So yes, there is, and it's going to take another world power, and I believe Venezuela has already filed some kind of request to the ICC. Other countries can step forward and file a request to investigate Donald Trump and others, and they should. These are crimes of aggression. There's 4 buckets of laws the ICC can consider. Crimes against humanity is one of them. The idea of a genocide is another. But it's actually called the crime of aggression, which that's this. Going to another country that's a UN chartered member, violating the UN charter, which we just did by doing this. So it's very clear. And corporate media sucks. The U.S. violated the UN corporate charter by attacking another nation without any authorization by the UN. So we violated the charter. It is a crime against aggression. Donald Trump should be charged. He should be prosecuted. Maybe finally the man will be held accountable. So that's my little open. I did a compacted open because I want to get your reaction. And I'm going to do my best to read what people are saying here. So forget politics. What do you want to see in your heart? What would you like to see Democrats do when they come back to Congress now, when they're on TV? What kind of statements? And it could be impeachment. It could be calling for the ICC to investigate and prosecute Trump. Is it something more muted? What would you like to see? And what would you like to see the world do? Because as sure as you're listening to me, I can assure you, if the world doesn't stand up to Donald Trump, he's not going to stop here because he's telling us he's not going to stop here. He's telling us he's going to go into Greenland, where Denmark, a NATO ally, is invoking Article 5 of the NATO pact to say, you got to protect us from him. You go after Colombia, Cuba, Mexico, even Putin. Even Putin, after he attacked Ukraine in the first day, didn't start talking about other countries he wants to attack, but Trump is. That's why Donald Trump is the Putin of the Western Hemisphere. In fact, he's worse. He's dumber and dangerous. He's a very dangerous man. So, all right, so let me read the comments the best I can here for people, and I hope it stirs up more comments of people. And again, the whole premise of this is that I hope people, you're reading the comments now, you're hearing what other Democrats, people on our side around the country are thinking, and collectively, I think it makes it smarter, and I find it enjoyable. All right, so let's see. I'm going to scroll back here and see what we got. God is watching. Well, that's nice. I know God. I've been on God's show once. A big fan of God. My last name, Obidallah. Allah has God in it, so I got to be a big fan. So let's see here. We need separation of Epstein. Very good point. There are a lot of people talking about Epstein files. What is the greatest distraction from the Epstein files? Start a war, right? And as a reminder, on December 24th, literally, the DOJ said they found over 1 million new documents involving Epstein. I'm not kidding. On Christmas Eve, they announced more than 1 million documents. No one's talking about that. No one's talking about the Jack Smith deposition testimony. and Trump was waiting because everyone knew when we got back January 2nd, 3rd, we were all talking about that. Distract. So we got Epstein. Someone says overthrow Trump. Not sure how you could do that. If you got a peaceful way to do it, I'm on board. Nothing violent. Edelweiss Farm says Trump has bombed 8 different countries to date. Yes, he bombs every country he wants a Nobel Peace Prize from, apparently. This is unbelievable. And Trump says he's running Venezuela. I hope the people of Venezuela like high prices, higher unemployment, and his name on all their buildings, because that's what they get if he's running it. He can't run America. He sucks, all right? So Danny says another country has to grab Trump. If it was an option right now for another country to come in and kidnap Donald Trump, and we put that to a referendum in America, I think it would pass. I'm pretty confident, because there's even MAGA people that don't like this bullshit. They're like, this is not what we want. All right, let's see what else here. We've got other people. Vicky says all countries need to step up and prosecute Trump. Look, Vicky, if other countries don't step up, Trump won't stop. Nothing about him says he will stop from his criminal conduct because he's not held accountable. Why would he? And that's human nature for all of us. If you can keep getting away with things, if you're not prosecuted, you're being told you did nothing wrong. And if you escape liability, like, might do it again. All right, let's see what else here. Ricardo says the freaking Democrats are very complicit with their comments following this. Look, there are people upset with some of the Democrats. Some are good. I mean, I saw Senator Van Hollen. I saw Chris Murphy on TV. I saw a few others. Many others put out statements right away saying Maduro is terrible. And what they did by creating that media narrative is give air or oxygen the idea that the end justifies the means. It does not. We are a democratic republic. Our Constitution must be the controller of what our actions are. If not, then we're just a dictatorship. To throw the Constitution. Let's just get rid of it. And when there's a Democratic president, we ever have one, they're a dictator too. And I will say this, the next Democratic president, assuming we get one, I think we will have so much pressure from us to, like, on day one, sign in Medicare for all. Just sign as an executive order. Medicare for all. Sign all big money is banned from politics. And let Republicans go litigate it. Let them go to court and let it get dragged out for 6 months or a year. But we've learned that there's no checks and balance because Congress itself has become more feckless overall and has little power. The power is more on paper. The one thing Democrats do if they get control of the House is Trump can't pass any legislation. That's the one guaranteed thing he can do. They can't pass any laws without us. But he can sign executive order after executive order. All right, let's see what else other people are saying. And the question is what you want to see from Democrats. What's your reaction here? Marlene says, I want the world to turn their backs on us. I want the victims of Epstein to reveal their perpetrators, but I want them protected. Very good. Chuck Schumer must be removed, the Senate Minority Leader. That could be coming after the next election. Let's see other comments here. Bridget says, Mexico, Canada aren't afraid of Syphilis Rex. Syphilosaurus Rex. That's his name. God says, damn right. You got to like it when God's here. I mean, and if you're not subscribed to God, subscribe to God. It's very fun. I've been on the podcast. All right, let's see what else we have. Comments here. Again, any thoughts you have, comments, I'll try to read them as fast as possible. Margaret says executive order to get rid of the Electoral College. Again, what Donald Trump has set up with this system of just signing executive orders, bypassing Congress, is a Democratic president. If we elect one that's got some toughness and courage and boldness, is to sign executive order after executive order on a wish list of what we want. Protecting our elections, getting rid of big money in politics, giving teeth to the Voting Rights Act, go down the line, paid family leave for the nation, drug prices that are lower for everybody. Sign one after the other on day one, just tons of them, and let them litigate it. While the executive order is in force, and this might surprise people, it has almost the power of law. That's the way it's defined. That's the way it's been interpreted by the courts. It really does. So until it's on hold, that's it. That's the law. And I think it would be remarkable. Michelangelo Signorelli joined me. Doesn't he have a radio show to host right now? That's my colleague at SiriusXM, where he hosts 3 to 6 and I'm 6 to 9, which I'll be on tonight. All right, let's see. And by the way, the Mark Kelly thing, people are picking up now. And again, look at what Trump is doing. In the midst of this illegality, his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is saying we are going to punish Mark Kelly, a sitting Democratic senator, for expressing his view that you should only follow the valid legal orders in the military, and they're going to take away some of his pension. which Trump did, remember, in the first term to Andy McCarthy in the FBI. I mean, these are bad people. And just so it's clear, J.D. Vance, who's sort of like hiding from all this, really bad guy. He justified it by fentanyl, saying that by getting rid of Maduro, it's going to save us from fentanyl. How much fentanyl comes from Venezuela? Zero. And he knows it. The guy went to Yale Law School. J.D. Vance, very, very dangerous person. And that'll be a topic one day. How dangerous. All right, so let's see what else people think. And the big question is, what do you want to see from Democrats as they go back to Congress on? Now, what do you want? I have two members of Congress on tomorrow's show, Representative Becca Ballant and Representative Hank Johnson, both great fighters. What do you want me to ask them about this issue? And I'll do my best to ask it. So put it in the chat right here. Again, you are my guest. I'm going to do it periodically with a topic just to see how people are feeling about an issue and get your responses. And also, I'll share it on my show with what people are saying here. Lynn says they are bad people. They are 100% bad people. Elizabeth asks, when will the 25th Amendment be implemented? That's the one that says if a president is not able to perform the functions of their job, they should be removed. Under Trump, never. I will say on a much more scary note, the more illegal actions Trump and the regime do, the less likely they ever leave office peacefully. Let me leave it that way. And we're heading down that road. Trump is going to pardon every single person who worked in his administration. They know that because he pardoned every January 6th terrorist. That was to incentivize illegal conduct. Everyone knows that. You know that. I know that. That's what they're betting on. That's why, to me, the International Criminal Court is the way to go. There's no pardon power for him, for those people. And yes, they can complain, and there's no jurisdiction in America. They can't come in and arrest them here. But if any member that has been indicted and charged by the ICC goes to a member nation, then they would be arrested there. And as Duterte, the former leader of the Philippines, where is he now? He's in jail at The Hague waiting his trial. Okay, so these things really happen. I know Netanyahu was charged, and what does Trump do? He brings him to the White House and shows him off. Here's my favorite war criminal. Netanyahu should go stand charges. Donald Trump needs to be charged. And I mean, is there anyone watching and listening that does not want Democrats to call for impeachment? And that's fine. I really want to hear your opinion. Do you want to say no and any line or two, I will read it. The second part, does anyone watching not want Democrats to say the International Criminal Court should at least investigate Donald Trump and his regime for potential war crimes? Do you think that would make more Americans get upset, the idea of turning to the ICC and not just keeping it in-house and let that run its course? And I'm open to that. Impeachment is our thing, right? Maybe Democrats shouldn't call for a prosecution. I would. If I was in Congress, I would, and I would piss off a lot of people, but that's life. If I was running for Congress now, I would make this a central part of my campaign. So what do you think? 86699. I'm sorry, that's my phone number for my show. Call me later, 866-997-4748. That was just a complete Freudian slip. So let me read more comments here. Does the International Court have teeth? Elizabeth asks. Yes, it does. If you're convicted, you could be sentenced to years in prison. I think even death. I think Milosevic, who I believe took his life, could have been. So we've got that. What about Congress didn't come back for an emergency? They shouldn't come back at all, says Charlie. That's good. That's a good question. That's a good issue here. Mia says, I want everyone to stop paying rent, stop paying their taxes, stop working. I want Democrats to grow a spine and fight fire with fire, stop funding AIPAC. Actually, AIPAC funds some Democrats more than that way, but anyway, I get your point here. Look, boycotts are powerful. Boycotts are protected free speech. Our Supreme Court is interpreted that way in a famous case with the NAACP. It is absolutely protected. You can boycott anything you want. So if you wanted and again, if you want to advocate a boycott of our Olympics by the world, that's protected free speech. If you want to say, while Trump is president, if he's attacking other countries, don't come here. Don't join us for the Olympics. Or don't play World Cup games in the United States. That's protected. You're going to piss off people on the right, but who gives a shit? They're not good people. And let's see this. How about this kind of law? If we go to war, MAGA has to get drafted first. And maybe there should be a law that says if a president declares war or attacks other countries without a congressional approval, people who are part of their political party have to get drafted first if there's a draft, whoever that is. But I'd like to see MAGA go to jail. I like them to go first. The U.S. has been bipartisan dodgy by the ICC for decades, says Charlie, 100% correct. Biden was critical of them, but Trump took it to new levels with the sanctions. I don't think there were sanctions by Biden on the ICC. I could be wrong. He talked about it when they were indicting Netanyahu. But yeah, there's a concern. The idea that our troops would be exposed to ICC jurisdiction and our leaders. And so that's why we're not a part of it. But we're just part of, there's a lot of countries out there that are not part of it. You see the list, like Russia, Israel, and stuff. You're like, not sure you want to be with those groups. Certainly not right now. Or let's see what else people say. Tina says yes for both impeachment, and Mia says impeachment only if it means we impeach the whole cabinet, get them out of office together. We need 2/3 of the Senate to do that and a few House members to do that. Not sure about that. MLR says arrest dumped directly. It's irregular, but let's consider that idea. Do you know how much I wanted Donald Trump arrested after the coup? I had Glenn Kirshner, he's my buddy, he's on the show all the time. We actually talked about, this was the time Trump was out of office and Merrick Garland not charged them, the idea of doing a citizen's arrest of Trump. Like me and him actually talked about it on the show. We researched, I'm not even kidding you, the potential of doing that. The problem is Secret Service would have shot us. But we were that committed. We were going to do a press conference outside of DOJ demanding Merrick Garland indict Donald Trump. And I wrote a new article for Substack today. They just went up a short time ago. And maybe if we do one of these tomorrow, I'm not sure I'll be able to tomorrow, about there's a straight line between the failure to prosecute Trump for January 6th and where our nation is today and the attack on Venezuela and everything else. We never held him accountable. He believes he's above the law. All right, a few more things because we'll stop this at 30 minutes. But LT Brown says, I'm from Florida. I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. I'm not sure if LT's embarrassed about being from Florida or about being an American at this time. I'd be embarrassed from being from Florida and America. Is Denmark a signee of the ICC? Dorothy asks. Good question. I believe they are, but they are a NATO ally no matter what. If we were to attack Greenland, as the Prime Minister of Denmark already has evoked, Article 5, the collective security measure of NATO, meaning we actually would be attacked by our NATO allies or at least they would join together to protect Greenland from us. And Keir Starmer, the spineless Prime Minister of Great Britain, who's been a doormat for Donald Trump, actually today stood with his European allies and Denmark and saying, the idea that Greenland's off limits, they are a NATO ally, we must stand united, which is shocking because they didn't care when it's Maduro in Venezuela, when it's here, but when it's Europe, they get really concerned. And they don't get it. If you don't stand up to Trump now, he's going to come for you. How do they not get it? Have they not watched newsreels from World War II? Trump is not Hitler in terms of the idea of being pure evil. Trump is evil. I believe that, honestly. And Donald Trump right now should be in a prison cell for what he did on January 6th and his attempted coup. And he should be there till the last day of his life as a warning to anybody. If you did what Trump did, you will die in jail. But we didn't get that. So we're stuck here. All right, a couple more. National strike. Not going to work. Kathy says not going to work. Focus on midterms. But Kathy, here's the thing. You must give people in the base something to be excited about. If Democrats go back to Congress and don't fight, don't send up to Trump, then how are they different than the GOP? So I think it's so vitally important that Democrats distinguish themselves from the GOP by standing up to them. Look, if Biden did this, the whole MAGA wing of the Republican Party would have been going ballistic, and they would have been getting more worked up and animated for the midterm election. You do things sometimes, even if you're not going to succeed, to show others in the base that you're going to fight, and to show Republicans it's not going to be that easy for you. So we got to keep fighting. All right, impeach Supreme Court. A few more, and I'm glad so many people joined, and I appreciate your comments here. Dorothy says Stephen Miller is pure evil. Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. Dawn says, which is my sister's name, remember Chamberlain's capitulation. I mentioned it earlier. Neville Chamberlain was the Prime Minister of Great Britain. 1938, they make the deal in Munich with Hitler, giving him part of the Sudetenland, or part of Czechoslovakia, which was German-speaking. Chamberlain goes home, peace for our time. What happens a year later? Hitler invades Poland, beginning World War II. The lesson for Putin, Trump, Hitler, anyone who are these sociopaths is if you don't stand up to them, they will continue to do this more and more. The world knows this lesson. I think Europe is grappling with this. They thought Trump was a one-off of Maduro, and they gave that to him. And now they're like, this guy might want more. Yeah, he does. He wants to be Donald the Great, like Alexander the Great, where he conquers all lands, and then he's upset there's no place left to conquer. That's what he wants. That's his legacy. And we have a dangerous person. On some level, I actually think that we know what it feels like now to live in Russia under Putin and disagree with what Putin is doing every step of the way. But at least here, we still have the freedom to talk about it and to write about it. You don't in Russia. So thankfully, we've got that. And if Trump could silence us, he would. All right, a few more things here before we run out of time. Stephen Miller looks like Dr. Evil, says Bridget. Yes. Any more comments here? The Dr. Francis Scully says Chamberlain also bought time for England to rebuild the armaments. And that's true. And I saw that. And in certain, I think I saw it in maybe the Churchill movie or read about it in a Churchill biography that he, the Gathering Storm. I think maybe he said that nice thing about him there. All right. Last comment. Chris Hayden says we're going to have to hear his dumb name for the next 40 years. I'm hoping you mean Trump's not mine, but yes, I'm sure you are, Chris. We are going to have to hear his name for years to come. I hope that it's on the legislation. I talked about it in the first term. I wanted the Donald J. Trump Act that says you can charge a sitting president to send a lesson and a message to every sitting president going forward that you will be charged for your crimes in office. At this point, that doesn't matter because the Supreme Court has since interpreted the Constitution to give presidents absolute immunity for just about anything. And that is where we are as a nation. So even that law might not be. All right. So look, I want to thank everybody for joining. Mickey says Trump is a dictator himself. Where the hell does he get off? And Greenland's next. Absolutely. I want people to be upset. Trump is invading other nations in our name. The world sees us. If you travel outside of the country and tell people you're an American, they're going to say, oh, you're from that country. Remember during Bush, we had to apologize? I'm an American, but not that. Or I'm Canadian, just tell people. We're in a worse place. Trump killing people off the ocean, in the ocean, attacking another country, and threatening Colombia, Cuba, Canada, Mexico, Greenland, our NATO ally, and bombing 7 countries, 8 countries, and demanding the Nobel Peace Prize in the midst of this bullshit. This is where we are as a country. This is the country we live in right now. All right, thank you. I want to thank everybody for your comments. I so appreciate it. It's great. If you listen to my show, I have my show on SiriusXM from 6 to 9 p.m. live every night. Join us there. And if you don't subscribe to it, you can get free trials and then call them and you'll get it for like nothing. I'm not kidding. Enjoy it. But if any event, thank you for subscribing to my Substack. Thank you for sharing it. I really wish you would share the articles if you like them. It means a lot to me. I work hard on them. I am delusional. I believe that through Substack, I can make a difference. I hope you are delusional as well, that collectively we can make a difference together, save our republic from this monster, from this madman, because we don't want to lose our republic on our watch. I don't. I want it to be better. So thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Happy New Year. I should have started with Happy New Year. Take care.